Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Morin. I'm a junior here at Davidson Day, as well as a member of our Community Engagement Council. Thank you for coming here tonight and supporting our students, community, and guests. To start off, we have 5 great panelists here with us tonight. Omar Caldwell graduated from Davidson Day in 2011 and now works as an enterprise data risk specialist at Bank of America. Dr. Drew Gadaire, a Davidson College professor of community psychology. Betsy Mack, vice president of corporate social responsibility, Charlotte Hornets, and executive director of the Charlotte Hornets Foundation. Greg Morin, director of training at Boulder Crest Foundation, and Karen Wolter, attorney at Bringewatt, Wolter Snover PLLC, and philanthropist. They are each great examples of community builders with a wide range of experience, which we hope will inspire all that are in this room to gain a better understanding of the benefit there is to staying connected with those in your environment. Our panel moderators, Braden Hansen and Vivian White, will lead the conversation and pick the brains of our panelists to lead the conversation as much as possible, to learn as much as possible about how we can enlarge our school community involvement and excitement. Senior Braden Hansen and Junior Vivian White have worked together this year as leaders for our Upper School Community Service Club and are actively seeking ways to improve our generosity and attitude towards each other, whether in the periphery of one's social sphere or someone well known. We just want to thank you guys. We just want to thank you guys so much for coming tonight. I'm Vivian and this is Braden.
We're going to start off first with a quick introduction from each of our panelists, and after each of y'all's introductions, we just want you to answer a quick question of what community engagement means to each of you. We'll start with you, Mr. Caldwell.
All right. Thank you, Braden. Mr. Caldwell, yep. I am Omar Caldwell. As Marie previously said, I graduated 2017 from Davidson Day. I'm nervous. 2011 from Davidson Day. And as far as the introduction, yeah, I went to the school since I was in 6th grade. I was at Davidson Day before this building was even built. So I think, students, I can really kind of relate to just kind of the small school environment. And I think while I was here, community service was important to me as a student, and also something that me and my family were big into. So I think with that, what does community engagement mean to me? I think initially, I think of service, right? I think of, I did a lot of book bag drives or like telephone calls with the YMCA trying to raise money for different programs and things like that. But over time, I've learned that you can engage in the community in so many different ways. You can engage in the community in panels like this and discussions, right? Just talking about kind of what you're seeing and how you feel, and that helps evolve the community and help people understand each other better. And you can also just give time, not even in having to give material things, but also just you can run a free basketball clinic, right, for local kids in the community, and that's a way to be engaged in the community and help kids grow and kind of do things that maybe they're not uncomfortable doing, but then grow confidence and things like that. So I think that's what it means to me. It can mean a lot more than what I thought it meant originally when I was younger and in school, but that's what life is for, learning, and being community engagement should be a big part of that.
My name's Karen Wolter. I go back with this school a long time. In fact, my oldest child started at Davidson Day in the year 2000. I had 3 kids who graduated, the last one in 2019, and he's a senior at University of Georgia this year, and the other 2 are off and working in the real world. To me, community engagement is the self-process of looking outside your bubble and learning, feeling, and displaying empathy for people who exist in your world, maybe not day to day, but who you're always surrounded by. I think that it is a personal skill set and a personal requirement that every human look beyond their world and their bubble and see what is around them and see what they can do to make that place better. So that's, I believe community engagement is a requirement. I don't think that it's something that we get to think about doing. I think it's something that as good humans, it is our job to do.
Both of those definitions are better than what I'm about to say. But I'm Drew Gadaire. I'm a visiting professor of psychology at Davidson College. My area of focus is community psychology. So I do a lot of research on community systems and how we can change systems, improve systems so that they promote more equitable outcomes and work better for everyone. We do a lot of work to try to understand what the community wants, what the community needs, and how different programs and systems are working and can be improved. What I think about with community engagement is really getting to know others in our community. We can think about a community here or a community outside of our bubble, but really getting to know others, building relationships with others, having the chance to understand the perspectives of others, and then from that, using that mutual shared understanding to build something, work towards something together.
Hello everyone, I'm Betsy Mack and I'm the Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility for the Charlotte Hornets and the Executive Director of the Charlotte Hornets Foundation. So quite a long title, but really what that all means is I am really in charge of getting the Charlotte Hornets players, organization, team, all of our different entities involved in the community. So community engagement is my entire life, from everything from my 9-to-5 job and then afterwards, like events like these where I really enjoy giving back and being a part of the community. And so I would say community engagement is intentional presence, and so it's showing up and it's really being in the place that you're called to and giving back in whatever way the community needs us. And I know we talked about different bubbles, but I would also say looking at different types of community, because there's all different types. I'm from Iowa originally, so I still consider my family and friends back home a part of my community. I look at my work and my colleagues, they're a part of my community. Neighborhoods outside of Charlotte that the Community Hornets are involved in, a part of the community. The NBA as a whole, different communities within our nation, different things that we really try to be a part of and advocate for. And so I would say really challenge yourselves as you look at community engagement to look at communities close and far, but be a part of a change and a movement, because community engagement is all about helping to make a difference for the better and looking at that across equity and equality as well.
Glad we got the mic without the cord. It's nice. My name is Greg Morin. I'm the Executive Director of Training and Education for the Boulder Crest Foundation. It's a privately funded nonprofit based out of Bluemont, Virginia, very northern tip of Virginia. And we run training programs for our military and first responder communities to include doctors and nurses and very shortly down the line teachers as well, with the understanding that if we can live well and struggle well, because there will be ups and downs over the course of life, then we can be the best version of ourselves. And in doing so, have the greatest impacts on people in our lives and communities in our lives. So when I think about community engagement, I think about connection, the relationships that we cultivate and create and strengthen and deepen with people in our communities. And I think about education, learning what's working, what's not working, what do people need, what do people dream of, what do people want, what do people struggle with, and finding that common thread of relationship and building pathways to growth and opportunity and strength and thriving through that avenue. And I think of service. That's the action item that comes from relationships and comes from education, is what are we going to do with that information? How can we put these things that we're learning and understanding and connecting over into action to change cultures, to change communities, to change the way we do business, so that we can all be the best versions of ourselves, and then that ripple effect, when we are the proverbial pebble in the pond, if you will. If we can do those things with each other, the ripple effect is really unending, and it becomes a way of being, not just a wish or wishful thinking.
Our next question is a little bit more geared to Mr. Caldwell and Mrs. Wolter, as the two of you guys have the biggest correlation with Davidson Day. Why, in your guys' opinion, is it important for Davidson Day as a school to pursue community engagement?
So, like I said, I've had the privilege of being very involved in Davidson Day from its founding, from the first efforts to actually bring some kids into this school. I actually remember Friday or two back in the early days where I would get a panicked phone call and say, "Hey, we're short on payroll," and somebody had to write a check, so the teachers got paid. So this started off as a big dream this school did. And the dream was to create a place where you had the bar set for the kids here, not here. And the reason that you set them here is because they can all make it. All of them. Every single kid can reach the bar that you set. And the bar isn't just about academics. The bar is about the whole person. That means, can you be a teammate? That means, are you a soccer player? Are you a basketball player? Or all of the above, which is what Omar had to do back before we had a whole lot of students. But you're a teammate. You're a student. You're a mentor to your friends and somebody who didn't quite get that math assignment. You're their mentor and your coach and their teacher helping them. You're an artist. You might not have the greatest voice, but you certainly were not embarrassed to come up here and sing it out to everybody else in the school building. That's the environment we wanted to create. A safety zone where everybody could try everything and they were encouraged to try everything. Another piece of that was looking beyond yourself. And that to me is community. Looking beyond yourself. That was a fundamental aspect of a Davidson Day education when this place was founded. Look beyond, go beyond. What if? What can we do? What can we do for our community? And I don't believe there's, and again, I've been out here since 2019, but up until that point, from 2020 or 2000 till 2019, not a year went by that my kids did not participate in some sort of community service activity. This is a fundamental piece of becoming a whole human. And I think in education, and this education you get at Davidson Day, the goal isn't to make you the smartest Einstein in the world, it's to make you the best person you can be. And that's academic, athletic, artist, soul, and your community and your responsibility to the world you live in. That's why I think it's an important piece of this Davidson Day community.
As a product of that dream, right, the dream of what Davidson Day could be and what it could produce, I think my answer is going to be very in line with what Ms. Wolter just said, but Davidson Day was for me, and I know it is for a lot of you, it's a great place to be yourself, it's a great place to try new things, it's a great place to have new experiences. And no matter what you do in life, there's gonna be a community around you, right? There's other people that are gonna be impacted by how you treat them, all right? How you give back, okay? And if you are, and you can be, like the smartest Einstein in the world, but the people, who leave this world with a footprint, right? They make an impact on the people around them. And community engagement is such a critical way to do that, because you're gonna be able to make an impact on the people right next to you, the people, in your community, the people who are impacted by what you do on a day-to-day basis. So even like, for me, for example, I didn't talk a lot about before, but I work at Bank of America in enterprise data risk. So, my team's, our objective really is to make sure that every line of business at the bank, whether, it's the team who sells credit cards, or the team who sells mortgage loans or vehicle loans, right? We make sure that they are handling customer data appropriately based on enterprise standards, as well as any outside, federal laws, rules, and regulations about how we should administer data. So you think originally like, okay, data, cool, I get it. I guess, right? But think about how that impacts people if we don't handle their data appropriately, right? And people who can lose money, lose their home, lose their car, right? They can have their identity theft taken because we didn't handle data the way it was supposed to be handled. So, and that to me is a sense of community, it's a sense of responsibility, right? Because the customers are part of our Bank of America family, and we have to do right by them, all right? So it's important for me to do my job. And I think in that sense, when we talk about community engagement, being able to tie that back, had I not been so involved in the community at Davidson Day, had I not had an opportunity to give back to other people and kind of see how that made them feel and how that was, kind of supporting what they wanted to do, I wouldn't be able to kind of connect that dot between what I'm doing now in my work and how I'm still having an impact, even though, people don't see me, right? They don't necessarily see the work that I do behind the scenes to make sure that their stuff is being taken care of appropriately, but it matters. And again, Davidson Day, giving students the opportunity to have that full experience. And of course, the academics are important, but I think, right there next to it is the community engagement. And then after that, it's more of a, what are you interested in, right? But that kind of requirement to be a good person to the people around you, to have a positive impact on your community, is very important. It should be taken seriously.
Mr. Caldwell, I just really love what you had to say, and it does really show what Davidson Day is like, because when I was a new student here, I was so welcomed by the community and felt so immediately a part of the school when I had been to 4 new schools before that, and it was just a great feeling to have, so I think you really said that well. So Ms. Mack, this one is more towards you. Your position is much more of a national one. So what are some trends regarding community engagement, and what is popular in your organization and organizations like yours?
So that's a really great question, and I would say, coming out of COVID, a lot of the trends were looking at how people could engage within their community virtually. I think we all definitely saw that from all the virtual meetings and schools and volunteerism, and so that was something that a lot of people saw, but I think now it's really gearing towards impact, and how can we all, as we're engaging in the community, have the most impact, and what does impact mean? And impact may mean something different to every organization that you're working with or every individual that you're engaging with. And I would also say, looking at what we as an organization that we do, the Charlotte Hornets, we really try to engage closely with our community and really hear what the community needs from us. And that may change every year, that may change monthly. It just really depends on what we're hearing from the individuals within our community. And so I would say back in 2018, when it really became well known that Charlotte was ranked 50th out of 50 in social economic mobility, the Hornets and other community and corporate partners really rallied around social economic mobility and how we could really help to face that issue and what determinants of economic mobility were keeping people kind of pushed back. And so that was something that we were really engaged with. And then as 2020 and COVID and the pandemic, we really leaned into our nation as a whole and showed up for our community where they needed us, and the national racial inequities that came to light. And as our sports team, Michael Jordan is our majority owner, and he's the only African-American owner of any professional sports team. So while social justice wasn't an initiative or a focus that we always pushed out in the forefront. It was something that was ingrained in our DNA, having Michael as our owner, having his family engaged in our team, in our organization. So hearing from the community, both locally, nationally, worldwide, that we needed to be in front of that stage of showing what we're doing in the racial justice, social economic mobility stage was really important to us. And so we created our social justice platform in 2020 to show not that it was something new or trendy, because I think sometimes people get caught up in trends and they show up and then the trend goes away, and so they kind of back off of it. But we wanted to show that the racial inequities were something that have been ingrained in our organization and will continue to be. So I think we see trends where we look at the impact, we look at the virtual volunteerism, but then we also see true core values. And I think just differentiating between those two is something that's really important when you look at community engagement, because that's something that, you know, the trends may come and go and you'll see that, but true values and true kind of initiatives that you stand for are something that need to kind of ebb and flow with those trends.
So, Mr. Morin, I've done some reading on your website and gotten to know a little bit about your position, and so I'm going a little off script here, but I just want to know, how has your work impacted you? Because you help so many people and you're so involved in that way, but how has it affected you?
That's a good question. I like that. It's caused me to do a 180-degree turn in life. The chapter for me in life prior to this was in racing. I worked for Hendrick Motorsports for almost 8 years and ran the pit crew school up in Mooresville for almost 3. And I was a part of I was coached for Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s pit crews for those 8 years. And Jimmy's historic run and all of the trophies and the rings and the accolades, and what I found out when I walked away from that sport was that success had become my mistress. That everything I was doing was to get one more ring and one more trophy and one more accolade. And then when I left, it came one of those moments, so what do I do with my hands? Because I don't know who I was. I didn't know. I grew up as an athlete. I grew up in sport. And when I walked away from that team mentality, where we bonded over service, when there was the tornado in Ashboro, we went out because it destroyed a Lowe's, and I took my players and we went out and we did community service. We bonded over those things, and when I walked away from it, I also walked away from what had defined me. And so what I got to do through what I do now is experience what it's like to look at life through this lens of service, through walking side by side with our nation's combat veterans, with active duty, with firefighters and police officers and EMS, and see the perspective of somebody who did raise their hand when it comes to going and doing things and defending our country and defending our cities and towns that I never thought of. And to look at life through that lens to say, all right, if not me, then who? Changed the perspective for me, and it changed my appreciation of life, and it changed my perspective on what's important in life. And it is those things that I mentioned earlier. It is connection, first and foremost. It's having relationships and multiple relationships, having relationships with people that I never would have thought of before, because I was so singularly focused on one particular aspect of life, and we can learn so much from everybody. To sit down, and I think of gratitude is a great practice to change perspective, and it's a part of, it's a catalyst for service. I'm grateful for things. I want to help other people. I want to do other things. I want to engage in other things. And so little things become very big things. And as a coach, one of my kind of mantras was do the little things well and make the big things great. So as my perspective on life shifted, and how I did life and what I thought about life and what was important in life changed over the last 8 years, service is at the front. Because the first thing for me, when I was at kind of the bottom of life's barrel, was to go do something for somebody else. And that's often kind of the first time we think of helping, when life sucks for us in some form or fashion. So service is that catalyzing effect for us to grow. when we do that, we find other ways that we can be of service. So when I look at the trajectory of the last 15 years of life, service is now at the forefront of everything that I do, and the impact in learning and growing and helping other people understand that through experience we can serve others. And when we are at our best, we can be of the best service for other people.
I really like that response, and I think that it is really important for all of us to think about service in that way and in that kind of light that you've done a great job in expressing.
This next one is for you, Dr. Gadaire. From the psychology standpoint, as well as you being at the College of Davidson, what do you feel like are the long-term disadvantages of ignoring the implementation of community engagement?
Sure. So I think as we've kind of touched on, all of us have touched on how community engagement is key to developing ourselves as people, to becoming good people, to having an impact, to understanding others, to building relationships. I think some of the long-term consequences when we neglect that, when we don't do enough, I think there are several. So I think on one hand, if you think about the way our country is set up as a whole, it really depends on active and informed citizenship. And it's really hard to do that when we're not active, engaged, informed, and when we're just thinking for ourselves rather than thinking with others, right? Trying to understand how something affects not just me, but affects others in my community, others from diverse backgrounds, others with different experiences that I may or may not personally relate to. And as we understand that more, we can be more actively engaged, involved, and play a role in building systems that work, that create opportunities, that provide real chances for others. I think it's a huge missed opportunity if we neglect the community engagement piece, where we miss a chance to see the richness of those alternate perspectives and experiences. And we miss that opportunity to see the strength of diversity when we come together and have ideas that come from different places, different backgrounds. That's when amazing things can happen, right? That's when we can come up with solutions that really change the world. When it's not just me from my background, from this class that I took, it's me from my background, plus you from your background, plus you from your background, plus you from yours. And we can bring all that together to come up with something important. And then I think finally for us personally, when we neglect the engagement piece, we lose a chance to really experience the benefits that come from a strong community, a strong, tight-knit community where we can receive that support, have the opportunity to influence, to share our ideas and perspectives, and the opportunity to be influenced by the community that we belong to, and receive support, and have that community shape us too. So I think emphasizing community engagement is crucial for our development as individuals, as communities, as cities, states, and a country, and so on.
Thank you. When you talked about it's not just you taking a class and you coming from your community, but also other people coming from other communities, I was wondering, when the council met with you, I was wondering if you could touch on what you were telling us about the bracelets and what led you to being able to help out that community.
Sure, so I can tell you a little bit about, there's an organization called Wakami that works in Guatemala, and the founder and CEO of that organization is Maria Pacheco, and she was born in Guatemala. She left Guatemala, and when she went back, they were just coming out of a 30-year civil war. There was famine, there was drought, there was death, trauma, hardship everywhere. And she wasn't the only one going to help. But the way that she approached it was to show up and say, what do you need? So rather than making this assumption that, oh, we need housing, we need education, we need food, we need these things, to show up and say, what do you need? How can I help you? What are your priorities? What are your strengths? How can I be supportive? And what they said was, like, food is great. I love getting food. It's really helpful for a week, but then we get to the next week and I don't have food again. And what they said was that if you can sell the products we make these products, we make bracelets, we make bags, we make all these different kinds of things. If we could sell those, find anyone who could buy those, we could turn that income into our own food, into our own education. We can do the rest. And based on that idea, this is a woman from a fairly privileged background in Guatemala. She got her master's at Cornell. She has all the opportunities in the world. And she took their baskets to the market and helped sell their baskets, right? And then from there, it built into, if we build these baskets, we build these bracelets, we make these products, we can sell them around the world. We can connect these isolated families to markets around the world and generate income, generate opportunity and possibilities. So now when these families have income coming in, they're able to support their children, they're able to send their children to school, they're able to invest in the school, they're able to invest in the broader community, and they're truly experiencing empowerment, right? So in Guatemala, typically a girl is pulled out of school around 4th or 5th grade. And now we have, because of, in these areas, in these rural communities, the expectation is to live in the home, to take care of the home. And now there are women who are business owners, who run their entire business, who are in charge of environmental cleanup in a massive lake in Guatemala, on civic service coalitions, are leaders in their community and really changing the way that education is provided, the way that services are provided, with the best interest of their kids, their families, and other kids like them in mind, which is really powerful.
So since both of you work with all different members of the community, what do you feel is the biggest challenge facing us prioritizing community engagement today?
So I would say the biggest challenge is really listening to the community and prioritizing those needs that you can have the most impact on. And so when we really engage with the community, we try to see and listen to the community in regards to where can we really plug in and what does the community need from us. But also I would say something that I really encourage and really have our organization as a whole do within the areas of focus. We have 4 areas of focus: education, hunger, military, and wellness. And within each of those pillars, we do quite a few events. So every year, about 150 events, activation, volunteer projects, grants that we engage with the players, the team, different employees. And I always try to make sure that we're looking at it from 2 ends of the spectrum. One being, let's look at an event where we can have a huge impact with the number of people that we're engaging with. It may not change their day, it may not change their life, but they're going to be impacted in a small way. So an example of that is military care. We pack 7,000 to 10,000 care packages for military servicemen and women that are deployed overseas. That's 7,000 to 10,000 individuals that are going to receive this care package from the Charlotte Hornets, have a player autographed item, little moments and items from home, whether it's chips or other Band-Aids or just necessities. It's not going to change anyone's life, but we're hoping it's going to change their day. And hopefully it'll provide some sort of comfort and just letting people know that we're here, we're supporting them overseas, and we appreciate all they do and thank them for their service. On the other end of the spectrum, like I was talking about, then we try to do something within that same pillar that has a large impact, but may only involve a small number of people. So staying within military, we completely renovated one veteran's house. It completely changed his life. He was going to be forced to move out of his home that he had in his family for generations, had no payments on it. However, the city condemned the home and they were going to force him to move out. He had nowhere to go. He had no financials to really find a spot to go to. And so when we came in, we worked with Purple Heart Homes, and we also worked with Rebuilding Together to really make this house one that was livable, and also something that he was proud to have family and friends over and really give him that integrity back and that quality of life. So very small when you look at how many people were impacted by that project, but it was something that really changed an individual's life. And we try to do that in all of our 4 pillars within every single year that we're in the community, and we try to do that throughout all of our work. And so I would say look at that same model and look at how you can engage with different community groups, different individuals, and realize that sometime your impact will be widespread and you'll be working with a lot of individuals. It may be a lot of different people that are impacted and you work with, and other times it may just be one person, but you could change their life. And you never know how that impact really could be received from those individuals, but know that those individuals are thankful, they're appreciative, and that is something that does have life-changing results.
Make sure my oven mitt's high enough up here. When I think about that question, I think about listening versus hearing. I think about understanding, and I think about creativity. From listening versus hearing, like, what do you guys need? What do you need? What do you need? And then, I'm gonna do what I want because I think this is valuable to you, or this is the service that I can provide you, and it really doesn't have any bearing on what actually is needed by the community or the people in the community. So one of those things that's preventing the prioritization of what's important is actually hearing what's valuable and what's needed. The next thing for me is understanding, and it's understanding how you can be valuable and why to prioritize these things. You know, think about our property in Virginia. That's our home base, and we are a nonprofit. We need people to volunteer, and we need people to wash dishes, and we need people to, donate and give money. And I had a conversation with a lady. So I just don't want to give bows and arrows to people. To your point, Betsy, it's that arrow is going to touch hundreds of people over the course of a year, and that exercise of archery is going to connect a father and a son. It's going to connect a family together, that they're going to take that connection and take it home, and that create that ripple effect because you donated an arrow because you heard we had a need for these things. So understanding what's important, hearing what they want, and understanding why it's important. And it doesn't have to be these grand gestures. It doesn't have to be this magnanimous gift or things with lots of zeros on them or lots of, these big ideas that people just want to catalyze. It can be the littlest of things. An arrow costs 60 cents, but it can touch hundreds of families over the course of a year until somebody loses it in the woods. And then the last thing is creativity. We got to get outside the box of what's possible when prioritizing community engagement. We have these, you talked about trends, and have these ways of thinking that say, this is what service looks like. And I had a conversation with folks from AT&T yesterday, and it was like, what about virtual service? We do all sorts of study on what we do, and I got one guy that does data analysis. There's thousands and thousands of people that will attend our training programs, and one guy that studies the data. So that's a way to be of service to our thing, but people don't really think of that type of way as service. So it's being creative and listening, hearing what people are saying, understanding why it's important, and being creative in ways that you can cultivate that action as ways to, that's how we can prioritize service, because now we know what they need, why they need it, and what we need to do to provide it.
And I just wanted to add one more thing, because as you were talking, I started really thinking about the role that you all are in as students, and even thinking about all the clubs that were outside the auditorium, which are so amazing, that everyone here is going to have different passions, and everyone here is going to have different interests. And community engagement may look different to every single individual in this room, and that's okay. But when you find your passion and something that really draws you in, that's when you're also going to have the biggest impact as well. And so showing up in a spot that you can really lean into and engage with is the best way to go about finding how you can be engaged in your community, whether that's literacy, reading, whether that's working with veterans. There's all different types of ways to be involved in your community. Just do the research to find out what really drives you to want to get involved, and that'll help to keep you involved as well.
And that is very true. We do have many club opportunities, and at Davidson Day, it's really easy to start a club. All you have to have is a teacher to support it, and you can really start any club. We've had debate club. We've had some really cool stuff. We have one of our students, Sky, has started her project of helping the ocean and the sea, and so it's just really cool that we do have those opportunities.
Our next question, Mrs. Wolter. In your everyday life as a lawyer, how do you implement community engagement?
I happen to be a government attorney, a municipal attorney, so I consider my career community engagement. I work with several small towns around in the Charlotte area as their attorney, and I do the legal work for them. So that's everything from helping with their human resources issues to procuring goods and services for the government to helping them with grants and the grants that they give out to nonprofits around their community. So I feel like I've made community service part of my career. And I started as a big firm lawyer back in the day, and the conversion from that my former practice to my new practice is life altering. I don't get paid a scrap of what I used to get paid, but I absolutely feel like I am having an impact. And I live in Cornelius, and I'm the town attorney for Cornelius. I feel like I am having a valuable impact every day on all the people, the 31,000 people that live in my town who pay the taxes and pay my salary. So to me, that's my professional side. We also, my husband and I also started a family foundation. And our goal of our foundation, in the simple words, it's our goal to level the playing field. We absolutely believe in our souls that our kids were given a gift to attend Davidson Day School. And they have also been given the gift of a nice lifestyle that afforded them incredible opportunities for travel, for experimenting with different sports and different activities and that kind of thing. And that, again, this whole person is what I'd like to see. I believe kids as they're growing up into their, well, your whole life, you have to be a whole person. People are really good at one thing, but you've got to have these other experiences to round out who you can become in life. And so our family foundation focuses on what we call leveling the playing field. We assist with private school tuition. So we supplement tuition at private schools. We supplement travel abroad, both at the high school level and at University of Georgia. We provide a scholarship for travel abroad. Again, it's these experiences that help people become, and I loved how you all were talking about the ripple effect. If somebody's given these opportunities, that puts people on the same playing field, whether you grew up on Lake Norman in Cornelius or you grow up in a neighborhood that doesn't have that same zip code and the same opportunities that come with having financial resources. But if you could get those same experiences, that puts you in a position to have a better shot at contributing or getting into a college, getting into a good job, not being afraid to apply to school out of state because you've had these experiences. And the financial resources are an important piece of that. So we're very happy to do that, and we've had a remarkable success with some students that we know we've helped. We keep most of it, it's all anonymous, but we know, and it's been absolutely a joy to watch how people can succeed when the burdens of not having the resources that your peers have are removed from their shoulders. So that's something else we do in addition to the professional and the personal. So hopefully it stays pretty constant.
Thank you. Our next question is for Dr. Gadaire. What is one thing you've learned through the experience of community engagement that you don't think you could have learned just from studying it, but it was actually the act of engaging with the community?
I think probably the most important thing I've learned through community engagement is how little I know. Just how small my understanding is. So through community engagement, you can understand other perspectives. You get to know others, learn about other experiences, and just learn so much more. So that's probably the biggest thing, is just how little that I know. And I've gone to a lot of school to know very little, and it's very frustrating. So I think that's a big thing, and I think just repeatedly seeing systems that either don't work or work as they're designed to continue marginalization and continue to promote unequitable outcomes. So through community engagement, being able to see some of those issues firsthand, I think helped highlight how important those challenges are, show that those challenges exist. Getting out of, we have the Davidson College bubble as well, so getting out of that to see kind of how the real world works. And then beyond that, learning that change is possible. So seeing firsthand some of the great work that people are doing, working together to change those systems, to make those systems work better, because they can change. Like sometimes it feels like these systems are just the way they are, they're set, there's nothing we can do about it. The law is the law, the school system is the school system. But when people come together, we have creative ideas, we have these great solutions, we bring people from all backgrounds together, we can really make a change and make systems work better, so it's not fixed.
So Ms. Mack, in your line of work, what do you do to make sure that you are successfully engaged in the community?
Definitely showing up to different community events, making sure that I'm very involved with the community. I think I sit on 5 or 6 different boards and committees. I have a team of 6 that reports up to me. They all sit on different boards. We try to always make sure that we have a pulse on the community to know what's going on, which is really important. And as Greg mentioned earlier, it's listening and not just, what did you say? Listening, not just hearing what people are saying. Hearing, not just listening. Okay. Which is really important, because when we go into the different communities, we used to go into different communities and put basketball courts in different community parks, which is great, and people loved them. But when we started really listening to what people needed there, it was digital access, it was food, it was uniforms. We did a whole event for Christmas and had our students put together their dream wish list for our players to go shop for them, and 90% of the students put food and put uniforms and put new shoes and things that most people consider necessities, luxuries, but these people, they're necessities that they don't have. And so while a basketball court obviously aligns with us as an organization and is something that is great branding and visual representation of who we are, it's not a successful, really needed thing for these communities. And so if we just didn't show up and put these basketball courts in, we would be tone deaf to what's really going on in our community. And that's why we really try to utilize our platform to elevate what's going on and what people are dealing with and struggles and issues. And the Charlotte Hornets have such a great platform, and I'm so thankful for that, that our organization and leadership has allowed myself and our team to put together events to say, let's elevate the fact that Charlotte was 50th out of 50 in economic mobility, because it doesn't just impact corporate leaders or individuals that are working to change this, but it impacts individuals that go to work at the night shift and then come home and have to feed their kids or find different daycare or work within public transportation that isn't there. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're always in the conversation and have a pulse on those needs so that we can be successful. But if we don't show up and participate in those conversations, then we're not gonna know those issues. And sometimes it's going to community churches, community events, late night neighborhood association meetings. But it's showing up where those people are and where the people are having the conversations, because we're coming into their home and their communities and their neighborhoods. And when we want to show up and be involved and engaged, it isn't about us and it isn't about the Charlotte Hornets. It's about the individuals we're serving. And that's what we really try to make sure that we're doing to be successful. And to be honest, I don't feel like we always get it right, but I think 90% of the time we do, and we're always learning and trying to figure out when we're not getting it right so we can switch that and continue to invest and be successful.
Mr. Caldwell, from your experience both at Davidson Day and also now working for Bank of America, could you touch on a few items that you now see as community engagement that you may not have before?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I think that, so when I began at Bank of America, I was working in compliance testing. Excuse me, should I drink some Fiji? When I began at Bank of America, I was working in compliance testing. And as I spoke before about how, my work in data risk has a positive impact on the customer. But I don't always get to see the customer, right? I never get to see the customer, let me correct that. And when I was working in compliance testing, it was the same thing. It wasn't always data focused, but ultimately, we were building out testing for different processes or procedures at the bank, right? Different things that the businesses were doing just to make sure they were doing them appropriately, the way they should for different businesses, according to, compliance laws, rules, and regs, et cetera. And I found myself a little frustrated when I was first in the compliance testing because I was not customer facing, right? And as I mentioned before, right, being at Davidson Day and all the exposure I did have to community engagement, that was something that, I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun, even outside of, drives and fundraisers, right? I even, ran some camps in the summer and like working with kids and seeing the smiles on their face when they achieve new goals or hit 3-pointer, stuff like that. Like I was kind of yearning for a stronger sense of community that was in my face, you know what I mean? So I could really understand, like, I know I'm helping somebody. I'm not just, typing in spreadsheets and sending out results. I know it, I feel it, I see the impact I'm having. But then, after a couple years into compliance testing, I remember I was talking to my dad, and he was, obviously with us through the whole thing, me and all my siblings, doing the community service as a kid. We actually had our own organization that we started in our neighborhood, Children Empowering Children. And we used that to run a lot of different fundraisers and events. So it was really something that we did a lot. And I even, did things in college, and I was talking to my dad, I was like, I'm enjoying it, but I got to find something else that kind of makes me feel like I'm helping somebody. I'm going to work and I'm helping my team, but I don't really feel like I'm helping somebody. And then as we talked through it, he kind of helped me see what I said earlier in this, is that, even though you don't see it, you really are helping people. And not only am I, even in the compliance testing for the data risk work I do, not only am I helping the customer, but he helped me realize that I'm also helping my community at Bank of America as far as my fellow employees, right? Like there is reputational risk with all those processes that we oversee. And if you see in the news some banks, you don't see Bank of America a lot, but you see some other banks in the news a lot because they're mishandling folks' mortgage money, right? They're creating fake accounts that weren't meant to be made, right? And they have to get sales to a certain level because there's not a lot of restrictions and focus in place to make sure that those things aren't happening and customers aren't being treated appropriately. And when that reputational risk hits the fan, then these businesses have to make cuts, right? They have to fire employees and they have to, kind of cut back on the workforce. And then that hurts reputational risk. Now people at work are kind of nervous, like, oh no, am I going to get laid off? So I think in the work I do at Bank of America, I've kind of had to take a step back. And even though I'm not seeing smiling faces, which I will say I did get a great opportunity to have that engagement when I was coaching the girls basketball team here at Davidson Day for 2 seasons. Shout out to my girl. I see Audrey. Hey. And that's something that comes with it. Obviously, it's about helping other people, right? That's the main thing, community engagement. But I would be lying if I sat up here and told you that I didn't feel good when I helped other people, right? That's something that also drives you, right? To be able to know that you're having impact and not just kind of moving a little aimlessly or maybe not selfishly, but just concerned about the people in your circle, but having an impact on the community that helps you feel good and it makes you want to give more. It makes you want to continue to contribute to those around you and those that you can see and even those that you can't see. So that was just something that I didn't realize earlier in my career, but now I understand in my role in risk that by assessing these risks and mitigating these risks, I'm helping customers, I'm helping contribute to the clean reputation of Bank of America. And even beyond that, right, I'm helping to impact communities and allow people to feel comfortable doing business with Bank of America and that their money is safe and that their family's going to be safe, right, and that they continue to live their lives and prosper and do well.
So, Mr. Morin, a lot of your job is, developing and, just using that word and, helping people in that way. So, what advice or tips do you have for succeeding in developing community engagement?
Be curious. Ask questions even if they seem silly or off the wall. We talked about learning and engagement. And curiosity is the thing that cultivates new things, right? It takes one thing and turns it into 10 things. Instead of, I had a player at Hendrick, and he always asked, why? Tell him to do something. Why? That's how he said it. I was like, shut up and do it. Because I said so. Why? All day long. But the reality of it, and in this chapter of life, I appreciate that curiosity because it creates understanding and it catalyzes innovation. And if we're going to continue to change things and we're going to change the way we engage community and the way we impact community, it starts with that constant, incessant, never-ending curiosity about why. And from there, there's nothing that's not possible because you deploy everything that the panelists shared in terms of learning and engagement and relationships and how it impacts us and how it impacts other people and what that ripple effect is and where can we pull people and where can your passions and your curiosities and the things you enjoy doing and the things that you're good at doing be put into the puzzle. Because if we don't ask why, we just spend our time putting this puzzle of life together brown side up, thinking we're doing something, but we're actually jamming pieces into places they don't belong and they're not necessary. We ask why, we turn the puzzle over and we start to see where the pieces actually go and the impact and what that picture ultimately can be.
I really like that analogy, the puzzle.
Mrs. Wolter, as someone who feels like community engagement is such a necessity for everybody to have in their life, what do you say to people that don't feel the same way? How do you convince them that it is a necessity and we do all need this?
trying to figure out how to be nice about this. I don't know very many people who don't get it. I don't think it's that people don't want to participate or do not want to be part of the community. I think it's it's prioritization, and everybody has to be able to understand this in yourself. Your priorities in life are going to change over the course of time. There's going to be a time where nothing's going to matter except your ACT score, or something. Don't let that be the only thing that matters in your life. Just said that. But there's going to be times when your priorities are different. In a new career, the first time you're paying rent and car insurance and what have you, your priority is going to be getting a paycheck, and that's the appropriate priority. It just is that, because you take care of you, you can take care of everybody else. But if you're not taken care of and you're not comfortable and confident in where you are in your life, then it's very difficult to start the ripple and to share the best you at that point in your life. And it should happen to everybody, because that's how you grow, that's how you learn, that's how you become able to fully prioritize participation in your community, is to know that you have taken care of yourself and your family, and then your doors open wide. And so while I don't believe there's people who just say none of this, I believe it's a matter of prioritization. And I don't think people should feel bad that it's not their first priority today. I don't think that people should be made to feel guilty about that. But I do believe that as soon as people get whole in their own heart and comfortable in their own circumstances, it is human nature to want to help everybody else. And I think after that, at that point, you make a decision of time and treasure. There's people who may not have the time, but they can write a check. And I'll promise you that community groups they love checks. That's a perfectly fine way to contribute and to participate. And if you do have time and you find the right, and you listen, and you hear what is being said, and time is what they want, and you have that priority that you're able to give that, then that should be your next step, and you should be able to put your time into it. And again, it's not only helping your community, but it's so fulfilling for your soul in addition. So I refuse to call anybody out, but I will say that it's prioritizing, not that people don't want to or don't believe it's important. I just think that people have to prioritize it when it's appropriate in their life.
So we've loved hearing what you guys had to say, and so we just want to know, if there was one thing that you hope our audience will do as a result of this conversation, what would it be?
The first thing is to research. I would encourage everyone to look at some of the brands, organizations, companies that you engage with, and learn more about their community engagement strategy. Bank of America, I know, has great focuses within literacy, equality, equity, education.
We have a good reputation.
Yeah, yes, they do. We're also good partners with them, so I love hearing and talking with them. But even, national and global brands, Target, they have a whole aisle and a whole focus based on Black products that individuals are creating in the LGBTQ plus community. And so knowing who you're engaging with and working with is something that I would encourage and implore everyone to do, but then also learning more about your own passions and really diving deeper into what your goals are, because I think treasure versus talent is something that I definitely first learned about and definitely utilized in my own upbringing when I was growing up. I was volunteering a lot when I first worked for United Way when I started out of school, and I was making a very low salary but couldn't give money, but I could give my time and my treasure. And then as I continued up, I learned more about giving financially. And so I think setting the goals and expectations that you have for yourself, but just learning more and finding time to get engaged and involved, and realizing that all companies, 90% of them, I would say, have corporate social responsibility departments that they engage with the community and give back. And I always think that's really interesting to see the brands that you're engaging with and how they're giving back in their communities.
I'd say number one, take care of yourself. Right? The old adage, you can't pour from an empty cup, is very true. And if you don't take care of you, you're not going to have that ripple effect, or the ripple effect that you will have will not be one that's a positive ripple effect. So you got to take care of the person in the mirror. And the second thing is be kind and curious. Be kind to yourself as you're navigating what is important, what are you passionate about. Understand that that takes time, that there are different chapters in life, that those things will shift and they will change, and you will continue to learn and grow as long as there is intentionality and consistency in the curiosity that you navigate life with. And the third thing is don't be afraid to jump. Take action. If you want, there's something that is on your heart that you are passionate about, you can find a way to do it. And it's not, doesn't have to be a big grand thing. These little things change lives. I was talking with Dean earlier, and he talked about buying pizza for the local fire department. And having worked with fire departments all over the country, one, they're always hungry. Two, it's those little gestures of appreciation that create shockwaves of goodness. So take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be curious, and don't be afraid to take action in whatever it is that you're passionate about.
So what I would say that I hope you all leave this conversation with is just recognizing the power that you have. And that power can look different to different people, but we all have this power to make an impact, to affect change in some way, to provide support in some way. And it might be this big thing, this big goal, or it might be something really small, right? It might be a small ripple that we have on a friend, providing support for a friend. Maybe it's helping someone we don't know. Maybe it's coming up with an idea for something that we could do differently. And there are so many ways to utilize that power based on your interest, your skills, your passion, whether that's leadership, whether it's data and research, creativity, performing, art, whatever it might be, there are ways to get involved and to make a difference. And I think the second thing would be to recognize that power in others as well. That everyone around us also has that power. Everyone around us has strengths, has skills, has abilities, and they may not always see it. So sometimes it's helping them see their power. That's part of our power, right? So when we recognize that power to affect change, to engage, to make a difference in others, we can help one another contribute to a positive effect.
So here's what I want you all to remember. Take care of you first. You are made up of many super, super cool pieces. Among them is a natural desire to help everybody, to help others. It's in there. The best way to manage, the best way to express that is to make sure that you're feeling good on the inside, that you're whole for yourself. So get there first. And then second, in this area of community involvement, follow your passion. If you like basketball, go help coach some basketball teams. If you like art, go help people and go do a photography class, do some free services, that kind of thing. Whatever, follow your heart, because once you start, you'll not be able to stop. Because if this is the passion that you have, this will drive you down your path, and it'll evolve in front of you as you grow. So take care of you and follow your passion in this area of community service. Helping others feels fantastic. It just does. And we all got a little bit of that world out there these days. And if you just look to your community and what you can do locally, all this stuff in the air that doesn't affect you at all, you just hear about it every day, doesn't matter, because you're making that impact and you get to see it day by day.
First, I would like to say this is really cool. Like, just because this whole like community engagement program that you guys are building now. It's relatively new, right, Bird? We talked about this. So I just wanted to, while I was in school here, we gave back, but we never had something like this. So I just want to kind of kudos to the students and Charlotte and teachers who are helping set this up. I think this is wonderful. I just want to make sure that I said that to you guys. In terms of takeaways, I believe it's kind of a natural flow. I'm kind of going to recap. I think we're all sitting here, right? First, can't pour from an empty cup, right? You gotta take care of yourself. Once you've done that, okay, and you've come to the point where you're ready to engage and give back to the community, right? It begins with discussions, understanding, the community you're trying to help and what can truly help them, right? And then kind of with that, what you're passionate about, right? You want to make sure that you're following in a lane, especially when you first get into community service, right? Something that you're going to enjoy, something that's going to really help you feel fulfilled. And I think the last step that I would add for that, for this group to take away, is to then challenge yourself. And what I mean by challenge yourself is after you've, so Sky, after you've been playing basketball, you love the game, and 5 years down the stretch, when you and I are coaching together, wherever that is, okay, and you're comfortable there, okay, maybe challenge yourself to, this is Davidson Day School, and Davidson is the immediate community, but there's the greater Charlotte community, there's the greater North Carolina community, who knows where you guys are going to end up and do great things at. Okay, so challenge yourself to maybe help people in areas that you wouldn't normally go, or in different, places of interest that maybe you're not super into, okay, but you might have a slight interest and you want to challenge yourself to see what it might be like to, help out some actors that are devoted to a theater class, or maybe you want to help out some students who might not have the resources to really learn data coding or things of that sort, right? Challenge yourself to maybe be a little bit outside of the box in the service that you give to not just your immediate community, but communities maybe a little bit further out. And I think you'll continue to feel that sense of gratification. You'll continue to feed your soul, and you'll continue to want to continue to add that ripple, and that ripple will grow and grow and grow. And I have no doubt that there's some great students continue to come out of Davidson Day because it feels like you're starting in a great place here.
We're going to have a we're going to have a Q&A now, so any audience members who have any pending questions for our panelists, or Braden Vivian, could raise your hand. Mr. Smith, I'm going to walk around with his mic, by the way, yeah.
I'm coming after you, Omar.
That's Mr. Caldwell.
I'm sorry, Mr. Caldwell. Omar, there's probably over 20 people in the room tonight who are months away from matriculating to college, or maybe a year or two at most. Do you have advice about your experience on campus at Sewanee and ways to get involved with community service, either the outreach within the campus or outreach outside of campus? How would you advise?
Great question, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
For me personally, in going to Sewanee, I knew that I had been at Davidson Day since 6th grade, right? My graduating class was 13 kids. So I wasn't interested in going to a state school where I had a class of 200 kids, and I just felt like there was too much room to kind of get lost or be a number, right? So I went to Sewanee, which was very small. I had my 20 people, I had a class of 20 people. I'm like, wow, what is this? And in that, I think Sewanee specifically did a really good job of, when the freshmen first got there during orientation, there was a huge, I won't say career fair, but what's the word I'm looking for? Just opportunities. There was it was in the courtyard. There were tables and booths. We were able to go around and kind of give our student email, see what we wanted to be interested in, talk to people about the different groups and activities that they were organizing, and kind of go from there. And I think that you're all going to choose great schools, do great things, your schools will have those opportunities for you, right? To get involved and learn about what's really going on in campus, what am I interested in, and how can I, give back to this new community where I find myself. So I think that's going to be my first piece of advice I'll give you, is take advantage of the resources that are there when you arrive on campus. And I think, outside of that, again, we would have a discussion kind of taking everybody else's great points, but, get involved and understand and listen or hear. Listen to, hear your fellow students, right? Kind of try to grow your network and see what other people are doing and see what else is going on in the community. I mean, that kind of initial fair that the school puts on, those opportunities they present to you are going to be great. But don't limit yourself just to what's there. And you guys, plenty of you have started your own stuff here at Davidson Day. All right, so maybe ask about ways to do that. And I'm sure you'll find other students, on campus that are interested in the same things you are. And you'll be able to engage your community in ways where you are comfortable and you have some know-how and you can kind of get started on the right foot.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Caldwell and Ms. Wolter, I feel like you both already talked about this a little bit, but I'm curious if other panelists have any thoughts about any experiences growing up where volunteering with your family and, even as an adult, creating a family foundation, how not just as an individual or even just as part of a school community, but as part of your family, if that might be expanded on and feel like you're doing something as a family with then expansion to community.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, this is very intentional from my husband and I, but we have very intentionally included our kids in the family foundation. They're 22 to 26 years old right now. And two of them went to Tulane University in New Orleans. And Tulane has a massive community service requirement towards graduation. They've actually have to take credit courses and they have to participate in public service to graduate from Tulane. So not only had those two had that experience here at Davidson Day, but they really got a taste of a different world in New Orleans. And I remember my daughter, one of the first projects she had to do for school was a Saturday morning cleanup of a park in the 9th Ward. And talk about, little Lake Norman girl getting her, slapped upside the head with reality. It was not, the homeless in the park that they were picking up around, needles, spent shells, casings. It was a absolutely eye-opening experience for her. She hasn't shaken it yet, in a very good way. In a very good way that woke her up to the fact that she had spent her life in a really, really nice place with really incredible opportunities. She and the boys both are very active with us now on, they live all over the country. One's in Chicago, one's in New Orleans, and one's in Athens, Georgia. But when things come up, they call, we hold a family, we hold a board meeting for the foundation, and they'll pitch their pitch, and then the family together will decide if we're going to fund things. That's how we funded a study abroad program at University of Georgia. One of my son's friends, again, he's at Georgia and lucky enough to not have to worry about loans and that kind of thing to get through college. Has a friend who wasn't so lucky, but couldn't do a trip abroad because he couldn't afford it, and it never had occurred to him that he wouldn't be able to travel abroad. Just again, lifestyle, not his fault. It's just the experiences he had had. Well, because of that experience, because of what had happened to an actual personal friend of his, he went to the business school at Terry College of Business, asked what it would cost to fund a scholarship, and asked the family if we would be willing to create a scholarship for that purpose, and we did. So they're starting, as they leave this world, they're starting to see a different side and another side, much to their personal improvement and benefit. And again, they are blessed to have resources where they can take action with their family, but I'm very proud that they're seeing it, and not just seeing it and saying, oh man, but they're seeing it and acting. So I hope they've been taught this their whole life. This is really the first time I've been able to see the fruits of this community obligation coming true, and so it's wonderful.
And I'll add on that as well. So I grew up in Iowa, so I obviously did not go to this amazing school and didn't have programs like these when I was growing up, but how invaluable for all of you individuals and how lucky you all are. But I definitely volunteered with my family. I didn't realize that what I was really doing at the time. It was Sunday morning, and we would all go out and we went to soup kitchens. We sorted clothes at Goodwill, I think it was, when I was growing up. And I believe it really creates a foundation within a family dynamic or a community, if it's family or friends, neighbors, that you learn, and together your collective impact of giving back really helps to set a strong foundation of that within an individual. I didn't even know that corporate social responsibility was a position or a field or a focus that existed. I didn't know that this is what I was going to spend my career in life doing. I went to college for public relations, sports marketing. I worked at United Way. I worked at an IT company and then landed back with the Hornets. Never did I realize how much giving back and volunteering with my family growing up had an impact on me that then instilled in me continuing to want to give back. When I moved to Charlotte 8 years ago, I didn't know anyone, and my first thought was to meet people. I needed to volunteer, and that was how I was going to meet my friends and my community here in Charlotte. And that is where I've met all of my best friends now, and my now husband. So I do think that there is so much more to giving back and volunteering together as individuals are growing up or students, and you never realize how strong that impact may be on someone until years later. But I definitely attribute a lot of what I'm doing now to growing up, volunteering, and giving back.
Okay, these questions are for Vivian and Braden. What is something you heard tonight in this wide-ranging, rich discussion you think you'll remember years from now? And also, what led you to prioritize use of your Wednesday evening to do this, rather than the many other things that you could be doing and helping create a space for this conversation?
Well, Braden and I are president and vice president of the Community Service Club, and so it's kind of been I think for us to see what we can do. Last year we had the Community Service Club, but our last president wasn't really, since of COVID and everything, she couldn't really do much, and so we this year wanted to see what we could do and see if we could really, create something. And so then Shiley came up with this idea to start a council and, really make a difference. And so we really liked the ideas of this, so we joined, and we get fed on Wednesdays, so that really adds to it. But also what's really stuck with me is the, listening and not just hearing. Dr. Gadaire met with us at one of our Wednesday meetings, and he also kind of said that to us. And I think it happens so often that we're like, oh, let's just, jump in something, and I want to make a big deal, and I want to, change lives, but it's really starting with something small. And like you said, just making someone's day that day. And so one of our next things is our Valentine's grams, which will hopefully, make people's day. And I think that is really important and something we should definitely all remember.
Yeah, to add on to that, so Shiley is my English teacher here. As much as she likes to say that this is all student-led and it's us doing a lot of this. It truly is her putting a group of us together and facilitating this. So we couldn't do it if it wasn't for Shiley. So it's a big thank you to Shiley. And then one thing I've heard this evening from our panelists that I feel like I will remember later on in life is probably, well, so we heard this first from Dr. Gadaire. He came into our meeting and he told us that we all need to wear uniforms. We were all like, okay. And he then went on to tell us that he didn't know the background of why we didn't have uniforms and why we're able to express ourselves through our clothing here at school. And then to have Mr. Morin emphasize that with the hearing and not just listening, I feel like that'll definitely be a big part of, did I say it backwards?
No, I said it backwards.
That'll be, I think, a big part of how I go on with the rest of my life.
Yes, Mr. Gadaire.
I have a question for Greg. Right? You mentioned creativity as a big component for community engagement, and that kind of resonated with me. So I was wondering if you could perhaps elaborate on that specifically, and perhaps what creativity looks like in action, if you have any examples you could point to that you've experienced or lived through.
Well, I'm a pit crew coach that now leads a national organization in training our military first responders and folks that are on the front lines of life to live well and struggle well. That's pretty creative. It takes somebody that taught people how to play in traffic to teach people how to live well and struggle well. And what's behind that is really think like what's possible. You know, I talk about with the player who's why, but the follow-up question to that is why not? Right? And you think about all the things that we have inside, the curiosities about life, the things that light that fire inside of us, and then we go, oh man, it's already been done. So-and-so does it better, or whatever that might be. And the creativity is what's your way of doing it? What's your spin on this vision? What's your spin on this arena or this opportunity? Because I can tell you right now, the program that we're teaching ain't rocket science. It's changing the world. It's changing cultures. We are literally changing the culture of the military, of the law enforcement community, of fire, EMS, and so on and so forth. And none of it's new. It's 3,000 years old. It's as old as world religion. It's that there's value in suffering, that there's value in struggle. And all we've done is paint a picture of possibility with it that says there's meaning behind these things. And here's examples throughout the course of history as to why that's true. Now that you know, you can't not know, so your responsibility, and I think with Spider-Man, it said with knowledge comes power and responsibility. Smartest man alive. Right? I have a 6-year-old, so we watch a lot of Spider-Man. Because now you gotta go do something with that, right? Because we can go through life going, I don't know how I can help, I don't know how I can serve, I don't know what's new or what's different, I don't know how to come up with the next big thing that's nobody ever thought of before. Don't. Come up with something that's meaningful to you, because the reality of life and this one thread of the tapestry of life that is struggle binds us all together, says we all need something in some way, in some part of life, in some piece of life, in some moment of life. And we know that because I've needed it, you've needed it, and when we find those people that we see that in, I know what somebody needs because I've needed it myself. Now how can I turn that into action? And that's where the creativity comes into play, is what skill sets do I have that can bring this to bear? That can bring it to bear maybe in a different voice, in a different light, in a different way, that's going to reach a different set of people. And then they're going to take that thing that they learned that catalyzed a spark in their minds and their hearts and go do something with that. That's not going to look the same as the way I did it. And that's the beauty of creativity, is that there's only so many new things in the world that we're going to come up with. Right? We still don't have flying cars like the Jetsons. I don't know, you guys are way too young for that, but look it up, Google it, or YouTube it, or something. But creativity is taking something you know is valuable and turning it into action and what it looks like in a meaningful, authentic way for you. And that's going to be impactful to somebody, and that's going to be impactful to the next person. And that's another way of cultivating that ripple effect through the creativity of possibility.
I have a question for Miss Mack, actually. So you talked about how you kind of connected your career with community service and engagement that you kind of like personally fuel off of, and I can definitely relate to that as a student. Like, of course, I have my daily like academic work, but I also have kind of like my personal little project that I'm super passionate about that give me like a combined energy kind of. So how did you connect that personal aspect into your daily like career life?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so I'll tell you it took time. So right away when I really realized about my passion for being involved in the community, serving the community, I wasn't really sure where to take that direction and how to really continue that engagement and kind of make that passion my purpose in life and my career. But it was really kind of exploring all different areas. And so it was just learning more and kind of diving deeper into that space. So I knew that I loved giving back, so I would volunteer in my spare time. And then through my day-to-day work, I started to realize that there were these other options. And so that's how I kind of coupled them together. But I feel like knowing your passion so early really helps you to help align that to driving where you're going in that direction. And there's all different options and all different ways that you can explore that. And I'll use basketball as an example because that's what I'm in, and I feel like I can make a good comparison of so many individuals talk about how they want to be an NBA player and they want to work in sports and they want to be there and that's what they want to do with their life. But looking at all the different individuals and all the players, there's not that many people that make it to the top of the top. But there's so many different options and pathways that still get you to be able to work in sports and work with the basketball team at the end of the day. There's data analytics, there's community involvement that I do, there's marketing, there's finance, there's plenty of different opportunities and different pathways, and realizing that there may be different pathways to get you to that end result, and really being intentional around that as well. And that's another thing that I would really encourage you to do, is that intentionality of your career path and talking to individuals that have similar career paths that you one day want to aspire to work in, and really asking them what their pathways were. Because I know on my team, I think I mentioned I have 7 different individuals. We all took different roadmaps to get to where we are today. And that's what I would just continue to reinforce, is getting to one spot. There's different ways that everyone comes to that spot. But knowing your passion is something that is incredible, and I would definitely tell you to continue to kind of go down that path.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So a lot of you guys talked about the bubble that we live in here in Lake Norman, right? And I feel like a lot of our students and me as an individual can account to like trying to get out of that bubble. But how can we rally a community to get out of the bubble, right? So more of a community on community engagement instead of an individual on community engagement. Any of you guys can answer.
That's a good question. I think that, you know, a good place to start for that, again, is these discussions, and really gaining interest. I think that, and you can gain interest through discussions. You can gain interest through actions and results. So you talk about, you know, a community impacting the community, right? If you know, you guys, let's say you start having impact in Davidson, okay, and now you got an itch, you want to have a impact in Huntersville. You know, there's a group of kids in Huntersville and you want to go impact them, right? And so say, you know, they're into theater, and I did some plays here. I really like theater too. But, you know, and maybe you're having trouble, right, you know, the three of you want to go do that, but you would like to get, you know, more engagement. But it's just, at that time, it's just you three. And I think that's fine, right? Or it's just you, and that's fine. But if you go and try to find a way to, whether you have a discussion and kind of ask that community what it is that could help them, okay? Or you try to go down and do some action and come back and share what you've learned and kind of share what you've done, then that could pique the interest of others. And then say, well, we're going to try to go back in a couple weeks, in a couple months, and help this community again. We think it's really important, all right, to uplift this community, and we want to be able to do it as a group. I think it kind of sounds like you want to have the community impact the community, right? But, you know, it's everything doesn't start, you know, at, you know, phase 5. Sometimes you got to start at phase 1. And sometimes phase 1 might just be you. And that's okay. If it's something you're really passionate about, all right, put that first foot forward. Take a risk, all right? And then I'm sure you guys have good friends, you got a good network, get some folks to go with you. And then as you do that, continue to show people that you're making an impact and you're having fun and you're growing and combining these two communities. I think you would then be able to continue to bring more kids from Davidson, more students from Davidson to Huntersville, right, to help really impact that theater troupe.
I would say define success, right? What does success look like? What does it mean? What does it walk like, talk like, feel like in that, even phase 0, just thinking, right? Looking in the mirror, what does success mean on this journey of impact? And that, for me, success is doing better today than I did yesterday. Right? 8 years ago, success was how many rings can I accumulate? How many championship bottles? How many uniforms can be soaked with champagne, Gadaire, and sweat, right? My kids don't care about that. If I didn't change my definition of what success is, when I'm dead and gone, they're going to be sitting on somebody's porch looking at a box of rings. It means that Dad wasn't around for 10 years. So my definition of success is, let me do better today than yesterday. And sometimes doing better today than yesterday means I didn't take a step backwards. So I didn't take any step forward, but I didn't take a step backwards. So what does success look like for this adventure? Right, what is the first step look like, and then achieve that? Because once you define success, then you only got to do 2 things. You got to start and you got to continue. Right? And that's how you move that ball forward. And you never know how much time it's going to take to achieve what you want to achieve, but you're constantly understanding and being thoughtful about what's the next successful step look like in this moment. Because some of that, you know, some of the adventure is moment to moment. It's not a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. You get into this whole level of strategic planning and tactical planning, and what's tomorrow look like for this adventure of service and engagement? What's tomorrow look like? How can I impact somebody tomorrow? How can I impact somebody in an hour from now? You know, defining and measure, and being able to measure your success will then set you up for that next phase of success as you continue to look at it through these small pieces. Do those little things well, and they'll make the big things great.
I've got one more. The other thing, you know, talk to your parents. So how many of your all's dads or moms work for a big company in Charlotte? Like we've already talked about, they've got all these foundations. They've got their community engagement teams. They would love a crew of kids to come help with their projects that they've got going on. The adults in your life are fantastic resources. So, you know, you get a group of 10 kids at Davidson Day who want to go to, I don't know, Lake Wiley and clean up, you know, do some environmental work. There's going to be a group somewhere who wants you. You've got, you know, it can be that kind of, you know, one day of service, but it gets you out of it gets you out of your bubble and moves you somewhere else. And I think that Charlotte is a superb mecca of opportunity, and you need to use the adults in your life that can help you get connected. And all that takes is they can give you a name, and it'll be up to you to make the phone calls and follow up. but I would certainly take advantage of your parents while you got them, man. You know, or your parents' friends. I think that is a fantastic way to help y'all, to give you an opportunity to get out of this our little neighborhood here and really see what you can do in a bigger scale downtown.
Ms. Mack and Ms. Wolter, I wonder, for your perspectives, about the value of structure in bringing people together to do community work. Specifically, I heard you talking about the 4 pillars, and those help give you some guidelines, and then the idea of doing, you know, something that impacts a few people in a big way and something that impacts a lot of people in a smaller way. And the concept of this family foundation that gives you a structure within which to work. I know at Davidson Day in the past, I've only been here about 5 years, but I know that there's been sort of a tradition of like choosing an organization for the year to sponsor, which gives some structure. But on the contrast of that is how much do individual students get to help guide the ways in which they might be most interested to be involved.
I believe structure is really important when you're really looking to create this engagement and when you're looking at building something like getting involved or really anything. I know for us, the structure of putting together our 4 pillars, putting together our focuses, making sure that we have events on both ends of the spectrum is something that is vital to our success. But I say all that to say within that structure, you need to have the flexibility to be able to pivot and not be held so tightly to structure that is that puts constraints on the success and the outcomes and the impact that you can have. And so with our 4 pillars, they're very broad: education, hunger, military, wellness. They are focused enough that we can really stick within those areas of focus, but then we can pivot as different things come up. We were able to, I know I mentioned the 50th out of 50 in social economic mobility, which I know I mentioned that. Does everyone know what that is? So Charlotte was ranked 50th out of 50 when they looked at all the cities, the largest cities in the US, how individuals were able to move within economic mobility. So basically individuals that were born poor in Charlotte, you're the most likely to get out of poverty. And if you're born in a wealthier community, then most likely you'll be staying in that wealthier community. So our economic mobility within different communities is one of the worst in our nation. So, you know, I go back to our pillars. We were able to really dive deeper into how we're able to focus on the economic mobility by providing food for individuals and taking that basic need out of their area of focus so they could focus on additional education or working with their kids, additional learning. We were able to do stuff within the military space in that area as well. But then when COVID came, we were still able to stay within those 4 pillars, but in a very different way. And so that's where the structure really helps, but the flexibility also is the key to our success. We get so many requests, so many individuals coming, telling us all of the needs that they have, and where they're very important, we don't partner with certain organizations, not because they're not important, but they're not within those structures that we set. And so that's really why I believe this structure is so important, because in organizations like the Humane Society, I'm sure a lot of individuals here have pets, and your pets are your family, and they're very important. But when we're looking at where the Hornets focus, we look at those 4 areas, and those basic needs don't always fall within helping the Humane Society, not to say they're not important. And so that's why I believe structure is important, but the most important aspect of that is having the flexibility within the structure.
I think structure is very important because of limited resources. So there's only so much time and there's only so much treasure. And to make the best use of both, I think structuring it and defining your pillars makes you a much more efficient and a much more effective member of the community, and from my perspective, a philanthropist, because I believe that I can have a greater impact when I'm focused. And like I said, our main focus of our foundation is, we call it leveling the playing field. And so we are very focused on education, kindergarten through college, education opportunities for people of need, or for students of need. And so that's where our focus is now. I'm also a big supporter and an advocate and worker bee for Safe Alliance, which is a domestic violence group that does miraculous work in Mecklenburg County. They are superb. So I'm super proud of that as well. And that is so that's sort of one of my more personal things I do in addition to the of our foundation. But again, structure. I'm lucky enough to be asked to do lots of things for the community, and I have found I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing under the structure. But I'd like to listen to the creative within the pillar. The creative ideas in there is what makes this so much fun. And I think as a school, with the students, I do believe that it would be super helpful for them to establish the pillars that as a school group or as a school community, they're going to focus on. But that doesn't mean the kids can't do what they want also, but when you're within your school activities, because I think that's where you're going to find that you're going to be most effective and get the biggest bang for your buck if you got some structure there.
Okay, I have another question for Dr. Gadaire this time. So, as Braden mentioned earlier, he came and spoke to the Community Engagement Council like a month ago or something like that. And I remember you specifically mentioning the power of asking questions as a way to help. And I know Ms. Mack also touched base on this a little bit, is like, instead of providing what you think is going to help someone, asking what they actually would benefit from is going to take you much further. And I know I learned a lot from when you said that, and I think it's something, I hadn't thought about it really before you said that, and I don't know if it's something that like other age groups might benefit from, but would you mind sharing some of that?
Sure, and I think that kind of connects to the structure, balancing structure and flexibility too, because we want to have the structure to be able to achieve, to be efficient and achieve these goals that we're trying to achieve. And we also want the flexibility to be able to pivot and respond to what the community is saying that they want, the community is saying that they need, and what would really be helpful. I think that's a huge piece, and it involves kind of challenging our own thinking and recognizing our ability to have an impact, but also the limitations of our thinking, that we don't know everything. Our way isn't always the best way. And how do we make sure that when we're trying to make a difference, we ask those questions first to try to understand what would truly be impactful to the community, not just what we think would be impactful. And then going back to what you mentioned as well of setting those goals, what does success look like for what we want to accomplish? What do we really want to see happen? And we can think about that in terms of what impact we want to have kind of outward, and also what impact are we looking for inward. And when we set those, that creates some structure that we can have some flexibility to achieve. There might be multiple paths to achieve that. And as part of those paths, I would encourage that asking questions, the truly trying to challenge your own assumptions and actually hear what the community is saying, what others are asking for.
And just to add something on to that as well, sometimes asking those questions and helping the community, because I know when we go into different community groups or neighborhoods and we're asking the question, what do you need? What do you want? That's so broad and so vague that sometimes helping to put some parameters around it. Like, if you had $100,000, where would you see the most benefit? If you had $10,000, where could that most help you achieve a goal that you have for the community? What is the biggest wish list for your kids and for the future community? So helping to ask probing questions will help the audience or the individual, the recipient, the person that you're trying to work with or help to engage with, provide an answer that'll help you on the back end as well. And I think sometimes posing those questions in a safe space helps that individual to feel comfortable to really say, well, actually, you know, if I could have anything, it would be this new building. We have this whole area that we have a warehouse and we want to create a whole library. And that's where we can take it back and say, oh my gosh, we have partners that are looking to do that. We have people who want to donate books. But when you're just asking a broad question, sometimes people don't know how to answer that. So I would just say kind of helping to define and help that individual to ask the right questions also is something that we've seen as successful in creating that safe space as well.
I completely agree. Like sometimes when it's overly broad, it's really hard to actually get anywhere. So sometimes there's the key of like sharing what ideas we have too. Like this could be possible. Would this be helpful? Would this be helpful? Would this be helpful? And trying to see kind of where those interests might fall. And I think it all starts from a relationship. So when we're working with someone new, with a community from a different place, when we develop that relationship of trust that we're here to provide support and find ways that we can help, when we have that trusting relationship, we can bring up ideas. They can share ideas with us, and we might dig into really what could be impactful and could be real. We can ask questions and so on.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think, like, I love going to these events because I always leave feeling so, like, inspired and I want to start all these new things. But I just want to thank you all for coming out here tonight. I think I can speak for everyone that was involved in planning this event when I say thank you, Ms. Shiley, thank you, Ms. Bergman, and thank you, Ms. Gray, for guiding us through this process and encouraging us to pursue what we value as important to our school. This event could not have been possible without a supporting audience, so thank you to all of you who took the time out of your schedule to prioritize us tonight. Thank you to all members of the Community Engagement Council and, of course, our great panelists. On the last note, we will, within the next couple of weeks, be meeting about our next upcoming service project, so stay tuned.